Okay, so let's chat about next big questions we get spoken to a lot about with students, and that's first competition, what to do if wanting to compete in first competition, and then why should you be competing. First thing we can talk about is basically consistency. If you want to compete, you've got to be consistent.
For sure. I mean, if you're not training consistently, you haven't earned the right to be able to compete. Yeah, people jumping in, training once a week, very difficult, and then the experience is just going to be bad for them.
And I think they set themselves up for disaster. I mean, how many students have we had to speak to about this in terms of competitions in 2 weeks' time, and they just jump in and say, oh, I just want to compete.
Yeah.
And then they have a bad experience and they don't learn from it because they haven't set the right progress in it. And then they also don't enjoy the experience and they never compete again.
For sure. And I think obviously for your first competition, there's always going to be nerves, and you're going to be, for any competition, even if it's your first or your 100th competition, there's a level of nerves. But I think preparation obviously breeds a level of confidence in what you can do.
100%.
So if you're training consistently and you're ready for the competition, then there'll be, even though there is still nerves, there will be a level of confidence that you're going to be able to compete well.
100%. And that comes to that next topic is the student being consistent for the first competition. That leads to having a plan.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we start explaining plans to the students for their competition, what does that sound like?
Well, first of all, they need to understand what type of competition are they doing, what's the rule set, what holes do they need to try and look at closing in the preparation period, and just having a plan of like, what are they actually going to do when they get there?
Yeah.
Right? If you have no plan, you know, like if there's a skill difference between you and the people you're going to compete against, a strategy and a plan can sometimes close the gap between the skill difference.
100%.
And if you don't have a plan, once again, setting yourself up for failure, like being inconsistent.
Yeah, I think we help them with, if it's their first competition, it's usually a white belt.
Yeah.
Usually. So we'll always speak to them in terms of, okay, so what's your stand-up plan? Are you going to look to take the individual down? And if you are, then how? Lower body takedowns, upper body takedowns, or are you going to pull guard? And if you are going to pull guard, how are you going to get your grips and get the pull? And then into what guard? Then it goes to, or if you're at the bottom and you have your guard, what guard are you playing? And in that guard system, are you looking to wrestle up to get your points, sweep to get your points, or are you looking to, or what is your submissions from that guard?
Yeah.
If you're landing on top, either with standing or from the bottom, you know, can you pin?
Yeah.
And can you pass the guard? And what passing are you focusing on? I think just with guys thinking about that, writing that down, and then having a plan for all of that, gives them a better understanding of what they need to focus on and train. And if they have that, I think it's going to have obviously a higher percentage of them being successful.
Yeah.
And if they're successful, they're going to have a greater experience, which is they're going to want to do it more to a certain degree. Some people still don't, but yeah. So then we also speak to students about they freak out in terms of not even wanting to embarrass themselves for the gym, and it's not really about that.
Yeah.
So not like focusing on winning and losing. So how do we speak to them about that, and what should they be focusing on?
Well, I always like try and tell people or the students here that like, if you've prepared correctly and you trained hard, you put a plan together, and you land up losing in the first match in the first minute of the tournament, there's no shame in that, because you put in the work, you prepared correctly. Jiu-Jitsu is one of those sports where anything can happen. You know, a guy who could be good on a specific submission hits it in the first minute, and that's the end of your tournament.
Yeah.
So there's no shame in that, so that they mustn't carry that burden of that they are putting the gym's name down or they're letting themselves down. As long as you prepare correctly and you have a plan, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And to not put that burden on themselves, but at the same time, to not like think that you're embarrassing yourself. There's going to be 100 competitors, if it's a bracket style system, 50 of them are going to lose in the first match.
Yeah.
And then the next 25 are going to lose in the next
It
match.
has to be a winner and loser.
Yeah. There's no draws and stuff in Jiu-Jitsu. So there's going to be lots of losers and very few winners.
Yeah.
So you're also not letting yourself down. Obviously, as a competitor, you always want to hold yourself at a like a higher level, and you always want to do better, but you're going to lose at some stage.
Yeah. I think we're not in control of winning and losing. We're in control of preparation.
Yeah.
And if the coaches and yourself have put in that preparation and you know you've done your work, then what is out of control is the final phase of winning and losing.
Yeah.
And that will be done on the day.
For sure.
But guys shouldn't be scared of that process, I think, you know.
And if you haven't lost, I feel like you haven't challenged yourself enough at a certain stage.
Yeah. I mean, that those losing aspects build different, outcomes in you.
Yeah.
You know, like what your weaknesses are, what you need to work on. Also makes you a little bit resilient on understanding like how it is to lose and how to deal with that and so forth. But it shouldn't be the end of the world, and I don't think people should shy away from it just because there is a winner or loser, because there's much more to gain other than that. Now it also comes to, we see definitely at the competitions and a few days before, students always worrying about and obsessing about their opponents.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do we deal with that?
Well, the thing is that they can't control what their opponent's going to do, but they can control what they're going to do. So I always try and tell the students or the competitors to focus on what you're going to do, focus on what's in your control, and the rest will play out as it should play out. Focusing on your opponents and starting to think about all their strengths, and you start bringing your mindset is focused on all these like negative things towards them. Are they great at arm bars? Or they great at triangles? They're good at the sweep. The moment you start thinking about it and obsessing over it, it's going to end up happening. Right? But if you just keep sticking to your plan and your game plan and what you've been preparing on, and your focus is to do what you've prepared to use, often those things don't play out.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. I can't say it better than what you just said, but guys need to focus on themselves and worry about what they can worry about, and worrying about the opponent usually puts him in a worse position, mentally and physically.
And I think I've seen it even in cornering, like 10, 12 years ago, like cornering guys and being like, watch out for this. And then, like, as you said, they start thinking about it and then it happens. It's like, So, it's the moment your mind start obsessing about something, that will materialize in a match.
And then, we always try and explain to guys that want to compete and are competing their first competition is like, enjoy the process, right?
For sure.
Because there's more advantages that are going to come out of this process. So, to explain to them what should they enjoy out of this.
Well, I think the biggest thing, and for me personally, when I compete and what I'm trying to communicate to guys competing for the first time, is that there's going to be a skills development phase now that you've got a focused goal. You're focusing on this competition. There might be specific rules that you have to adapt your game to and improve certain areas of your game. But the benefit is that you will be better by the end of this.
Yes.
Guaranteed. And that it's a great way to stay intrinsically motivated for your own development in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's more advantages, way more advantages in it. The process sometimes isn't easy because, like you said, you have to now, obviously, it's not coming to class, and some people just come to class to just like enjoy it. Now you have to have a plan, you have to stay focused on what you need to do on a specific rule set. There's a little bit more stress involved, but the final outcome is that you become better in your jiu-jitsu journey from just competing. And that's why we always, we do push the agenda of like, you should try and compete at least once.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's for these reasons, correct?
Yeah. You also don't know if you enjoy competing unless you've tried it, right? Yeah. Sometimes people are like, I don't like competing, because they've had an experience in other sports or other martial arts. Yeah. And then they try jiu-jitsu like one and they're like, I'm hooked. And like just running back to like the skills development part, there's a reason why athletes generally progress faster in jiu-jitsu than your standard like class
sports.
Yeah, because they've got such a focused goal of developing skills that are effective in a competitive environment, that they become better a lot faster. And there are other elements in grading that we obviously take into account. But I mean, that's a major thing, is to improve your skills. And there might be this element of jiu-jitsu that you don't even know you enjoy yet.
That's it. I think a lot of things is exactly what you said, is that a lot of guys shy away from the competing, but they don't even know what it feels like yet. And how many times have we seen it with our own students that compete and they get absolutely hooked on it, and now they just want to compete.
100%. And they wouldn't know that if they didn't try it at least.
Yeah.
And there are avenues to try it. Like, we're not saying go into the pro division at ADCC for your first comp. Like, there are like in-house comps to like get your feet wet.
So that's the next thing that we try and explain to the students is the process of what is a first comp look like. We shouldn't be taking a first time and throwing them into like an IBJJF top competition, top 5 or
major
ADCC majors. So we have obviously at QW have in-house comps, and that was mainly for, right? Yeah. It's super important. We've also seen people make the mistakes where their first competition is at a big competition, and that it overwhelms them.
For sure. And I think with these in-house comps for guys that are doing their first comp, it's very focused, very safe. Like, you got the rule sets are protecting you. There's a lot of like officials and refs and coaches and cornermen there to like watch what's going on and try and keep you safe. So like, it kind of takes away this element of, I'm gonna get injured. The refs aren't going to like me because I'm not from their gym or whatever. It's like, it's all here. Everyone's looking after each other.
Yeah.
And you can kind of get that feeling of what it feels like to compete. And I always like to tell people, like, compete enough until you at least win once.
Yeah.
Because it always sucks losing. Losing is never great. Yeah. But when you feel how nice it is to win, then it can also sway you a little.
Total different feeling, 100%. And that's why obviously being in the right competitions, kind of also in the right weight division, we've seen that as a mistake as well. The in-house comps, definitely, that's why they were created, was to give an enjoyable experience to the first timers, even though we still say there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser. But that comes into what you just said now, is like, try and do the correct competitions in-houses until you actually get that win, and then make your decision. Yeah. But a big mistake we also see is guys struggle sometimes to make that or get that win, and that's due to not listening in terms of what weight class they should be in. Yes. And how does that occur?
Well, I think guys are like nervous of cutting weight. They might be disciplined in training here in the gym, and then they don't want to be as disciplined in maybe like their diet and like leading up, and maybe cutting the weight to be in the correct weight class. Yeah. So instead of that, they go upper weight class, and they're like, no, I don't want to have to worry about this element of it, but it's as important as the other preparation. Yeah. It's making sure that you're on weight, you're in the correct weight class, because you could be significantly better than that guy that you're competing. But if there's a crazy skilled, crazy weight difference, and you're both kind of white belts, like that weight's going to play a major issue.
Yeah, I think we've seen that recently with some of the students that have entered. That's why also coming back to like being consistent, right? So being in the gym and being consistent in your training, which will lead to you having a little bit of a healthier lifestyle, losing a little bit of weight, being in the right weight class, that will all help in terms of when you do want to compete, and you hopefully are then in the right weight class. But if the coach says like, listen, I think you need to drop a little bit more weight as well, don't be so hasty in doing it as quick as possible. Yeah. Rather take the time, even if it takes 6 months or plus, to get to that right weight class, especially for your first competition, because you've also seen guys like do drastic stuff just because they want to compete, and that has also harmed them.
No, for sure. I mean, and there's enough skills and knowledge that you can be guided to do it correctly and safely. Guys mustn't like YouTube their weight cuts, whatever. So everything can be done in a safe manner for your first tournament.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, hopefully that helped. That's students that are looking to do their first competition, and also like reasons why we push or like our students to compete. hopefully that answers a lot of questions. And if you have any other topics that we want to talk about, you guys can comment down below.